Am I in your, here I am.
No.
Later. All right.
Sorry.
So I wrote a little thingy here about how I think about ham radio, kind of emergency services and communication, on how we help people, right? People helping people. What I'm going to focus on is in these categories here. Who we are talking to, what are we talking about, when are we talking, where are we talking to, how are we talking, and how you can help. So a little bit about me, Ke5QKR or WQZB833. Anybody knows what that is? That license, WQZB833. That was a little question I put here. It's a GMRS license because the club has a GMRS repeater up on the water tower here in Slidell, where we relay traffic. There's a net every Tuesday, and we listen for people with those FRS radios and other licensed GMRS users, and we can relay to the EOCs, because we man them both here in the parish and the city. So anyway, a little bit about me. I've been in the IT industry with somebody else I see here for 27 years, worked for General Dynamics, and all we do is hook people together, whether it's in the cloud, networking, whatever, convergence of all digital, now in the cloud. So that's another thing, people. I can't tell you how many people we actually hook together don't want nothing to do with each other, but we still do it anyway. What drives me, though, in general, is if what I'm doing or what I'm involved in involves people helping people, I'm in. Put me in, coach. That's what it is about to me. So first topic here, who are we talking? I'm sorry. Yeah, who are we talking to, right? Well, let's meet the people here, right? None of these people are us, but you, some club president, well, the guy who gave the presentation before is our club's president, Dave, right? Some licensed ham, we're probably all hams here. GMRS, some of us might have GMRS as well. FRS, there is no license. MERS, there is no license. CB people, there's no license. It's all licensed things, but those are the people we are talking to. You as a skilled operator or some, whatever you do, if you're into emergency radio, great. If you're doing it for a hobby, great. We can learn all kind of stuff from each other. You, a person that's willing to network with other people to help, right? You probably made many contacts in whatever you're doing on ham radio. Or a contributing club member. I'm a member of the W5SLA club here, and extra points if anybody knows what board I'm the committee chair for. I know you know it. So, the field day, right? We do winter field day and regular ARRL field day, and Glenn and I have been doing it for 5 years, using the system we'll show you. And then finally, a networked person. So there's all types of people who are able to communicate or able to network, if you will. So some of the scenarios, we're still talking about who, right? Who we're talking to. So scenario 1 here, hams relaying messages to and from the NOAA Weather Service and to areas impacted by severe weather. So our club has a lot of people who are interested in weather. There's weather stations online in our APRS. We interact with the NWS directly through their chat system. Glenn, I keep pointing at Glenn. He's their assistant. What do they call it? Assistant. Yeah, AEC. All right. So we are a part of their chat. We have several hams, and what do? We use the Skywarn system. We all have been trained. We've been to the NWS. They trained us, and we relay traffic to and from them. Another scenario would be hams relaying messages to and from the National Hurricane Center. Both Glenn and I have talked personally to Julio Rapul, and we've met him. He's been here. They have the hurricane conferences here in New Orleans every year so far. And we sent them traffic. In fact, they still tell a story to this day about the W5SLA. It's a part of their presentation. They pull up the message traffic from Sean, one of our members, who was there at Katrina and started sending them the first information back. So we talked to them. That's a scenario. Ham's relaying official traffic message to an agency that we might serve, federal, state, parish, city, our own. We have our own ECC building here. And we also man the city EOC and the parish EOC, which is in Covington. And anybody, we relay traffic with any of those. Ham's relaying message to and from the public. That's the GMRS idea. People who have FRS bubble pack radios and the right or GMRS, non-licensed services, we can still talk to them. Health and welfare. You got it. So anyone see a common theme here on all these scenarios? We're relaying messages, right? Anybody know what the MOA is or stands for? Memorandum of Agreement. Yes, it is that. We have this with the Red Cross, the ARRL has it with these people. There's all these agencies that are capable of being served, and if there's an incident, they dispatch. Yeah. Yeah. Yep. And there's agreements. So anyway, the common theme here is definitely the relay. That's where I was going with that. So that was a kind of who we talked to thought. Next will be, what are we talking about with these people, right? And there's a long list here. Obviously, disaster responses, hurricanes, weather. There's a fixation here in this parish on weather. And there's been a long-standing relationship with the NWS and Skywarn, and people putting their data on the air. Dominic, Russ, me. There's John, AA5UI. There's all sorts of stations here available on APRS and doing stuff and things we use when we're actually. Glenn usually runs the net, the Skywarn nets, when they kick up. He's on the chat and they alert. We're probably, there's a good group of people who's always there from here to Mandeville. So health and welfare traffic, sets. Simulation emergency test. There's one coming up on the 20th, 21st. Right. We moved it over because of here, I think. And me and Glenn will be at the Fidel EOC as well as Russ and Manny, I think, at this parish. Yep. So we'll be sending traffic on all levels, state, federal, ARRL leadership, and local, both digital and voice. We'll talk about that. So digital modes, we talk about digital modes is what this is, right? We have nets every Tuesday, Thursday, Tuesday and Fridays here, and we talk about all kind of stuff. We talk about what doesn't work, what does, what are we going to do, being prepared. I remember when Dominic was still living down here, W5DGM, he always had a preparedness topic for the Tuesday night Aries nets, whether it was generators, fuel, food, water, something. He always had a topic going. And now Glenn is running those. Planning, what else, who else can we talk to? Nets, check-ins, this is all the things we talk about. We love talking about equipment, the software we're using, especially from my perspective, the free software that we're using, right? We talk about network and people, and traffic, mainly how to pass it or how to get it out there and push it along, because the Lord knows there's multiple ways that people want that to happen. And basically the last item here leads into the next slide. Whatever who we're serving wants us to talk about, right? Because remember the key is relay. We're relaying messages. And did I mention equipment, by the way? We like talking about weather and equipment. This is a bonus slide I threw in there. That was Katrina, by the way. That was Katrina. Maybe when it was getting a 5 offshore, getting to be that real. Anyway.
Build up most of it.
Yes. So formal traffic, right? What do we talk about? This is the topic we're on for the new people that came in. What do we talk about? Well, there's all sorts of ways to send traffic, right? Voice, data, whatever it is, and there's all sorts of forms, and there's all sorts of customized ways. Something me and Glenn have definitely learned. You know, the ICS 213 is kind of a standard, but then people have different versions, and they want different things, and you have to be agile, right? We really have to be agile, and there's training to be had on all of those things and those topics that you can take in order to see what that's all about. But the biggest thing you learn from those is to be agile, adapt.
You haven't taken that EC001 course, the ARL, that is a real eye-opener on
What they want.
you can expect in an actual disaster style emergency.
And we'll talk about that. It's coming up in here. So yeah. So that was a little bit about who we were talking to. So where are we talking to is the next topic here. So you all know, I'm preaching to the choir here. There's different bands that we have as hams that do different things in normal conditions, whether it's VHF and UHF, 6'2", 1 1/4, 70 centimeters, or you know, the local repeaters that are on those bands, you know, 5 to 50 miles. Ours has pretty damn good coverage right now. There's somebody from Fort Allen checking into our net every time. And also in Biloxi, there's people hitting us all over the place. So Dave is doing a wonderful job on our 2.7 repeater to keep that thing not an alligator, but actually useful. HF, 160 to 10, 3 to 30, or 1 to 30 megs. 100 miles to 1,200 miles. Now, it's more than 1,200 miles, obviously. I've made contacts that my thing is telling me is 6,000, 9,000, but it just depends on the path. Yeah, just depends on how it's going around the earth and bouncing around. But, you know, the reason we go to field day and we have our boxes and antennas compromised or not is to find out, what does it really take? Really, what does it take? And there's so much to learn on this alone, which is worth progressing up through the license classes alone, just to learn about propagation, the layers, and what's going to work. So it just so happens that our club has some great people like Dave, K5OZ, behind the scenes, making the systems that we have actually work. So local, this is a snap from APRS.5 of some of the things that are happening up here. You can see Glenn's got quite a few things at his, or the QTH you are at over in Pearl River. I got a WinLink gateway gone. That's why this official relay station status is there. And my WinLink gateway, plus all of the stuff I got running at the house. But this little cluster right here is all at one tower site. And Dave keeps that thing tuned with all his Agilents and spectrum analyzers, you name it. You know, the Smith charts, getting those circles tight. He keeps this running great. There's a bunch of stuff. UHF, VHF, digipeaters. Each repeater we have, 2 UHF and 1 VHF, has its own digital modes. DMR, YSF, D-Star, and they're both analog and digital, one for each. So they have quite an array of stuff up there, and they keep it running, which is awesome. The biggest part of this slide, local, that's the range we're hitting, because we always want to get stuff from the Slidell EOC out to the Covington EOC. That's our next hop, the parish. That's where we send traffic, basically, to make it to the state, if necessary. But there's the regional view. And yeah, right now our repeater's covering probably out from Biloxi to Lafayette. They got pretty good coverage on that thing. But the I've been to the Slidell EOC, just like I said, I've been to the Covington EOC, and I've passed traffic via all of these modes already. Talking to Jim Coleman at the sets and sending him direct voice traffic from the Covington EOC is the last thing we did, plus the WinLink messages. They didn't have a working scenario at the Covington EOC. We hooked up with Mr. Semino, and made it work, basically. And now Russ is there, who's also making it work. In fact, there's a dedicated mailbox now, PBBS, packet station. So the last thing about this slide is depending on whether or not we're in or out of the affected or impacted area determines what our role is. We flip-flop roles. If we're in the impacted area, we're trying to get messages out so that the other people can go out and get them too. Because it's likely regionally that we can't talk to each other. HF is going to be shooting straight over our heads, and our VHF, we're pretty much assuming it's going to be dead. We'll work on getting it back, recovery, but we're pretty much sure it's not going to be there some kind of way until we go and make it work. Until then, we have other methods. If we're outside of the affected area, tactically, we're helping those people who are inside by offering gateways and things. I saw Angelo here. Angelo runs a Pac-12-4 gateway for the WinLink system on HF. The Cellcom people, Mike OZE, runs Vera, a multi-mode gateway, and I run a packet gateway that's got this VHF coverage. So we've got pretty good systems around here to help us flip-flop. So another system you might be familiar with it, speaking of PACDOR, is the NTSD, or the NTS system itself, right? This is about a network of people. Anybody ever heard of the NTSD? I know everybody's probably seen the NTS and heard nets where they route traffic through the sections, section, region, local nets, but you ever seen that same thing digitally? It's an interesting system they have there. And if you look at the WinLink stats, which we will in a bit, you'll see how much traffic is flowing up and down some of these networks. WinLink is separate, but the idea is the same. It's a network of people. Another network of people, speaking of this, now we're going to shift. We were talking about regional and local. Now we're moving up to national levels, right? So one of the great things about the WinLink system is that to help us relay with tactical items, especially if we're in the affected area, there's an entire network of people listening on, in this case, this picture is from the VARA protocol, which is a pretty relatively new and free, kind of, protocol that a lot of people are using. They dropped WinMore and RDOT. They didn't drop it, but it's not used as much anymore.
RDOT's still there.
Yeah.
They dropped WinMore.
Right. The poor man, the cheap man's edition.
The other day we sent VARA to that very
yes, to Texas. Yeah, that the last traffic we sent was out to here. So again, what this network helps us with tactically is getting that message out. So if I can't hit Covington from Slidell, I can still hit a station 500 miles away from me, sit that message on that thing, and he's going to go get it from Covington. Same idea, just now we're in this impacted area, we can still talk to each other. So this network of people is spread out so that they can do that. We don't know any of these people, right? I don't know who they are. They don't know who I am. But there they are, willing to help us by putting up their infrastructure so that when we're impacted, we can do that. Even talking to local people, we can go out. So that's a very important tactical use and why I like the WinLink system a lot. So when are we talking with this network of people, right? We just talked about this. If we're in the affected zone, this is what me and Glenn's favorite term is. We go into make it work mode. We don't know what the, people always ask us, all right, we're all prepared. We got this whole console of equipment. None of that shit's working, but we're gonna make it work because we know the tactics. We understand the system, and we know there's people out there that we don't even know who have infrastructure for us to use, willing to help us. So if we're in that zone, right, we got to get the message out. It's all about relay. And we got to get the message in as well. So these mailboxes that are sitting up there on the backbones of all these infrastructures and RMS gateways connected to AWS, blah, 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 I can go on forever. All that infrastructure is sitting there for that express use. And it's possible to use. Again, if we're not in the zone, no. We still got to get the messages in and out, but this time we're the people that they don't know. We're helping them. We have gateways. We have infrastructure that's going to route mail. We have people who are listening to those NTS nets who are participating and saying, okay, I'll pass that traffic for you. For the region you need to get to the east, NTS, okay, go this way. So that's the scenario where we're flip-flopping our roles based on what's happening. Scenario, right? So how are we talking? Right? How are we talking to these people of network? This time, actually, I put digital people. Why am I fixated on WinLink? Right? This is the biggest thing. That tactical use of using the people who are volunteering their time, efforts, infrastructure for people they don't even know is so important to me. That's what makes this system, and even the agencies have recognized it. They say, no, we're using that. Let's put a mailbox on and we'll get somewhere perched on that system, right? Why is the question. There's a whole bunch of people who are out there who want this to work, and they guide it, they guard it, they keep it working. People will try to bump your mission and tell you what to do, and they're like, get out the way. That foundation is keeping this system useful, I guess is the best way I can put it, where you have those tactical possibilities. And how do they do that? There's multiple protocols. If you've ever used WinLink Express, you'll see how many different ways there are to connect. Packet over RMS, packet or HF, multiple protocols over HF, satellite. I don't know if anybody's ever used the Iridium Go yet, but the satellite communications is the WinLink's connected to. Peer-to-peer, not even RMS, not even if you're trying to get it to the internet, but if you want to go point-to-point and set up mailboxes and post offices to relay out, you might come in via packet and go out via HF, or there's all sorts of methods, multiple protocols, multiple bands, multiple modes, multiple network layers. That system is designed to survive something. And we don't have a clue who's out there doing it, which makes it so important to me. That's the why I'm fixated on it, because I haven't found a way for it not to work yet. I swear to you, I'm not just making that up. Every year we go out in the field with different expectations, and every year we find a way to make that system work. When others, I can't go that route. This one, I got away. No matter how I think about it, I got away. So one of the modes that they use, you can see packet is quite a cluster of things. Well, packet's also, depending on what it is, usually VHF, 1200 baud AX.25, right? Good old 1200 baud from the 80s over the air. There's a big cluster of those available, and our club has one out at the tower site at 620 feet. So that DigiPeed also has that same coverage. I've jumped through 2 hops to Baton Rouge, 2 hops to Mississippi, 2 hops up north towards Jackson. I've done all directions from my location here in Slidell out via packet. There's no less than 9 different bulletin boards out there right now. I have an Outpost. I don't know if you've ever used the Outpost software, packet message manager. I scripted it so that it goes and pulls every new message on all 9 of those BBSs into one client. And it could also connects to WinLink via RF or Telnet. Doesn't matter. So that one thing, you run that script or tell it to run. If you think about an EOC, you tell it to run, it'll go get all of those messages and put it in one box. And it tells you where they're from. And the most important thing is it doesn't go and get the same messages. It remembers, oh, that message is the same one. Don't go get it again. So you don't retransmit it over the air. So packet is definitely a well-established method of connecting to WinLink. Always has been through the RMS gateways, they're called. PacTor, again, I saw Angelo here. I think Angelo runs a PacTor 4 gateway off the WinLink system. That's important. And PacTor is the second most used HF protocol to transmit messages over the WinLink system. Anybody know or thinks they know why it might be the second most used and not number one? $1,200 P4 Dragon used by the maritime industry. That's what's keeping that up is why. It is used. In fact, we'll talk about it a little bit later. But PacTor 4, P4, is the highest speed. In fact, it exceeds the FCC's symbol rates for us as hams. However, we'll talk about a little bit about that a little bit. So it's the second most used, and there's bunches of gateways globally for PacTor 4. Very good protocol for HF. Then there's Vera. You see a little bit more. There's a little bit more of those Vera stations sitting out there listening for connections. All those people we don't know. It is the number one use or traffic passed is over this protocol via HF. Anybody know why? It's number one. It's free.
The price is right.
The price is right. Unless you
get the paid version,
right,
which is faster,
right,
but it's still a lot cheaper than packaging.
Yeah, it uses OFDM as a technology under it, multi-carriers under one thing that don't mess with each other, basically. And it's still within that 3K bandwidth. But there is a symbol rate limit from the FCC. So he wrote it that it stays within it, and it goes right up to the top. If the conditions are good enough, it'll hit that limit. PacTor will exceed it. PacTor 4, that's the difference. But you're paying $1,200 versus nothing, or $70 if you want to register this one to get right up to the limit. So this is number one on their RMS gateway network, and you'll see some of that stats. So why, again, this is why WinLink. I feel like a WinLink salesman right now, even though it's free.
Don't push the red button.
Yeah.
Don't push the red button.
If somebody Staples, right? If somebody presses the buttons, right, this is another reason why I mentioned that me and Glenn have talked to and have passed traffic already directly to the Miami Hurricane Center. And we've talked to their leadership and their ham station down there. Why? Why are we so fixated on that? It's our number one scenario. Let's face it. Katrina taught us that. Hurricanes and weather is our major disaster waiting to happen. It's just a matter of when. And that.
And we got an NWS station.
Yep. Right. The New Orleans NWS is in Slidell. Right. So, so that's, they've been through a whole bunch of, is it Destry?
Yeah.
One of the meteorologists is also at the EOCs with us as a ham. So we're still tied to them. We just don't have our co-located station anymore, which is fine because we have the ECC, our own building at the club. So that is our station. And we talk directly to them through the people who are in the chat with them. It is Slack, yeah. They changed. Yeah, nice. So there you go. We got people we do know instead of those people we don't know. So anyway, the WinLink system it does respond. They are proactive and they keep that system available and focused on wherever these things are happening so that people out there can make it work. One of the great things, speaking of the expensive modems, the P4 7800 or 7X, there's two different models, is that PACTOR modem we were talking about, which is phenomenal over HF. However, it exceeds the rates of what we can do. So legally, we can't use it unless there's a waiver. And the ARRL always requests that waiver. And once that's in place, they give you, a time frame. You're working that event or that disaster, you can absolutely set up. I've noticed that Angelo, he was here just for the last forum, he has one of these systems, and I see him posting on the WinLink bulletin boards of people's statuses, their gateway statuses. Every time he says, okay, now the N5UXT is available for PACTOR 4. So he broadcasts on their forum that use my gateway if you have to, which is awesome because he's serving the whole Gulf with that, or people who are trying to get their messages out if they're impacted, that flip-flop thing we talked about. So there's people here who are doing this. Then there's the VARA. I've been told that it will also exceed the rate. Like if you have the $70 version of it, it will exceed the rate if the conditions are good enough. Whereas the P4, the P4 Dragon's pretty much doing that. It's definitely doing that by design, by default. Again, it's used way more in the maritime industry for the ships. In fact, I think it's required. So that's why the price is up there. So the ARRL, the cost difference is extreme between these two, $1,200 and $70. One is software only, one is a piece of hardware and a license for the actual protocol. That's why they get you. So about the traffic, we were talking about number 1 and number 2. This is a snap from August of this year. And you can see the PACTOR modems came up to about 3,500 messages passed with its 1, 2, 3, and 4 modes. Okay? That's number 2 on this list, actually. And the VARA, in all its variants, are in the 8,000s plus, actually. Way higher, yeah. Probably 10, 12 messages passed via these VARA protocols. So way more people using VARA right now than they are PACTOR because of the cost alone. You can download it for free. And it does work. Venezuela? VARA? No, VARA is from the guy, EA. Is Spain? It might be Spain.
EA?
Yeah, it's UZ7HO is the guy from the Ukraine who wrote Sound Modem, which is packet. AX.25, 300 baud or VHF, which I use exclusively. So how can you help? Most of y'all already are. I'm looking at the badges in the radios, and I talk to these guys every day on the radio. So, like Glenn mentioned, there's a course from the ARRL, which to me is absolutely worth doing. What I learned from this course is not about the ICS or NIMS or what. It's the scenarios they put you in for the radio that they run through are phenomenal in this course. I was not anticipating. I took it a month ago. I was not anticipating what was in there at all. I was like totally skeptical going in. Like, great, I'm going to learn about the ICS more. I worked at a refinery, so I was a HAZWAPER employee. We did it in NIMS, ICS all the time, every time, and chemical training, and we had so much safety training. I figured it was just going to be another one. It's not. They actually put really good scenarios and information about what you should and should not do in scenarios when we're serving another agency or someone else. So that ECO01 is absolutely worth taking. I'm not sure y'all are familiar with, I didn't bring it either, Glenn. Yeah, plus it's free. There's a standardized, a lot of stuff you read about in these courses, the ICS 100 and IS 700 from FEMA, are generated around standardizations, right? Like how people use standard terms, what forms they use, how the structure expands and contracts. All of that information is presented in these trainings. But the radio part of it is this focus from the ARRL, which was awesome.
ICF stands for Incident Command System.
All right, you just won a prize according to this, because that's one of my questions. Anybody know what ICS means?
We use it at the fire department, and it's expandable because you might get there and one engine can handle a thing. Or it might be a hazardous materials incident where you got to call in the state police, you got to call in public
Yep.
works, you got to call in the Red Cross.
It might blow up.
Call in ambulance.
Literally blow up.
Yeah, and it just expands, and stuff that you're going to ask for to handle that incident has to be paid for by some manner. So they got to have records of everything. They actually have a
Let's see what I
whole
want.
section that just keeps track of the budget.
Yeah, the logistics and, yeah, in fact, I think we're a part of the logistics. So,
We're way down in the corner.
so there's a standardization that's happening. I don't know if you've ever heard of the Aries level 1 or 2 or 3, and then you have the executive peoples, but they're putting together the standard. So I achieved that first level, which is nothing more than the ECO 1, 100 and 700, but then there's also 3 more if you want to go to level 2, plus the Skywarn stuff.
Yeah, that's actually, they're optional for level 1. Level 1 is getting a task book on.
The task book, that's right, that's what he said the key word, the task book. There's a task book you're supposed to self-initiate and put together about what you've done, and I've submitted that to my AEC. So I started my task book. That's a great, I did not put that in here.
Just a side note though, next class, the EC016,
Yes,
I asked John Mark to approve me to take that.
yep,
He told me the whole time that he is the section manager, I was the only one that asked him
wow,
to do that. So 5.5 years, he said,
Yep.
I said, you gotta be kidding me.
yep,
So there's a lack of interest in
absolutely.
Well, the other thing too is that they're now telling everybody, oh, you got to take these every IA.
Yeah, yeah,
You know, and it's like nobody wants to do that.
yeah. Unless they do a refresher, I don't want to take that whole thing again. I don't want to take that one again, I can tell you that, or the 700. I understand the differences between NIMS and ICS and what they're saying, but okay, y'all worry about that. I know where I fit now because of this ECO one, or at least even with this though, they tell you you're likely not to be deployed or dispatched. It's that when you get to that other one, that's
The other one is not the self-deploy.
right.
Never does.
That's right. So you got it. Anyway, just to move on, that network of people, right? So I did all of that stuff. I gave it to my AEC over there, and I do have this box here that I put together with the wrong side showing. But at least, at least that's a good side too. If you put it up on its side to see what's going on there. So I put together this station for me as one of the field days and a go kit because I realized I could put together with the Shack in the Box FT991 here any of those RMS gateways, tri-mode, HF, packet, any of it. I got it to work. It does work. We've used it, and a lot.
Now they don't make that radio.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, they got other versions of that same thing, but there's lots of other pieces in here that are lend itself, if you will, towards emergency communications. I could feed this via AC, DC, or solar. There's a controller up in here. It's all kind of equipment up in here. Rig runners, auto switching, battery. You know, I just put all my thoughts together in one box. If you want to take a look at it and check out what's in there, because I wanted the ability, if Glenn's sitting at the EOC and we can't reach, let's say even Covington or someone regionally, and we're trying, I'm going to go to that spot. I'm going to go to the edge. What's in between us? Who can bridge that gap? I can bridge that gap. HF is the ultimate thing in that, because now I'm sending messages 500 miles away. The same person can go 500 miles away. I can't talk 70 miles to the guy next to me, but I can definitely hit him 500 miles out. and then get them, get that message through and back. So extra points if anybody can decode the resistor color codes. I know some of you nerds are in here.
The yellow looks like a tower.
It is. That's a 10%. Yeah.
Well, it's gold. Oh, that's
We
gold
are.
will be 5%.
Well, it could be 5%. I might have went tight on this one.
The first one's purple.
It is.
What is that, blue, red,
Seven.
or
It's actually 7.3. Yeah. Anyway, that's nerd shit right there. And the GMS.
Looks like a Star Trek.
Actually, that's an OR. That's an OR gate. Yeah. It's an OR gate logic. So anyway, the reason I put that slide there is some of y'all might know me from that show. That they call me the cheap old man on the amateurlogic.tv show. But the GMRS rig here is something I just added because Slidell has a GMRS repeater, and we have nets on that thing too. So lots of cool ideas in that box, and it just works. And I think, Glenn, that's it.
Good. GMRS is on which channel?
It's our UHF 22 repeater. Yeah, 725, 460. Yep, and you'll definitely hit it from here. In fact, it's got about a 20 mile. We mapped it out mobile.
25 miles mobile.
Yeah.
I can hit it from Pearl River. With my body.
Nice. Get out of there. That's it.